got a surprise for you. Check this out, bishop. And I just put my bishop back on g3. So, you know, your rook looks awfully stupid on that square. Now, what we've been seeing Liam play, and you were going to get into it a little bit, Maurice, was the move f4, knight f2. Speak to that.
He seems as though he's, in fact, settled on this as the way to surprise Garry. I am sure we haven't seen Garry do any of that in their analysis
at all
together with Fabi. So maybe this is just like the way, the different way. It seems a bit offbeat, more hyper-modern style, as we see the players are seated and ready to go here on this last day. But maybe it will be the thing that gets Garry on the back foot. Maybe.
You got to send him reeling.
We've seen Garry burn a lot of clock early, so it's not a bad idea to throw a
castling square there. So I don't want you picking up the rook first. So you must move your king first to show us that you do intend to castle kingside, okay? All right, with that being said, good luck. Please go ahead and start White's clock.
So slight warning there to the players, but actually aimed at Garry. Dude, you've been using two hands to castle. Touch your king first. b2, b3.
Yep.
Okay.
No surprises.
Well, that was precisely what they were looking at. For me, it's a bit of a surprise because, again, I don't see the queen as being an issue, a problem piece for the players.
But bishop to b2, like make a move for black.
Okay, d6.
Okay.
Just,
so d6, you countered the point because
oh,
bishop,
sorry.
Because bishop. Let's
C5.
play d5. Let's play
d5.
d5.
Excellent.
And now I play bishop to b2.
Okay, so you develop, I develop.
All right. Now the thing is,
oops, that arrow.
So already you're actually threatening.
That arrow was supposed to be attacking.
Yeah.
I'm not good.
Well, what
with
if
my
I'm now
arrows,
just going d3,
all right, so
D3.
supporting into
Yeah.
an e4 eventually?
So let's say knight to d2.
so we
Let's say knight c6. Oops, sorry, that's a knight c6.
By the way, your bishop on g6 has got my attention because I have a knight g3 h4 sighting.
I see.
Also coming.
This kind of thing. That usually, funnily enough, that usually provokes a move like h6. Here, because you've got your darn battery already set up, I might find myself drawn to f6.
So problematically, you might be castling queenside as soon as I do as well.
Right. Makes sense.
Let me go for e4.
e2, e4. Okay, you told me what I should do. Castles. Now,
all right. There's just, should I be castling that way? Should I be going for h5?
So the weird part is I always thought of the opening as you got to prepare the address for your king. Where's your king sitting? At the moment, you've played h4.
Yes.
Kind of an indication that
of where I'm going.
Yeah, but maybe.
But you know what? I'm going to be Alpha Zero-esque and keep going.
Put it down, right? h5.
Okay.
Bishop. h6.
You want to do it, right? Like,
I don't know.
You don't
because
care.
You're trying to
show some power on that diagonal. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Let's do
right?
it. Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. All right. And I took it. So now I'm kind of suggesting that
exchange sack. Okay, I'm taking on f6.
Right.
Yeah, f6 for sure, right? And develop the pieces.
Right, so you've developed, and I'm going to cackle.
Okay. You've dinged my pawn structure. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, but it's still about effective piece development, right? I'm not sure.
I'm going to take on d5, so
sorry.
that I don't have to worry about that.
You got a square. You got a square.
I got a square. Well, do I have to use it? Why not use it?
Right.
I would love to get. Sorry, back that up. Back it up. No, I did trade.
Sorry.
I'm just wondering about bishop e2 to go to g4. I just feel.
Well, one thing's for sure.
That
diagonal that you opened up, you did good. I mean,
I'm hoping.
You messed up my structure.
But that's one idea. I could have also just played knight f5 in that position.
Yep.
No, after taking. No,
Yeah.
we go, we take, we play knight,
knight
f5.
f5.
And hope that there's a little light here. And by the way, we've been analyzing this whole time.
And nobody's moved.
Gary is still sitting. This is just light analysis. We're looking at some options. By the way, here you have this move, bishop a3 check.
Like, yeah, because of the move b3 from the opening move, b3.
But I might just play bishop b2 if you do
come
that.
back.
So,
That's pretty
all right,
funny.
I could get behind a position like this if I had whites. I wouldn't mind.
Exactly. So, again, what we've been looking at is putting the bishop on b2, and we saw that what Maurice was trying to do was blast open this diagonal, and he did a very good job in that last iteration. So b2, b3, what did I play? I played
You just played d5, which I didn't think was necessarily top move because you played d6 and went for, encountered what I was trying to do with e5.
Let's try just another approach. And again, Gary's thinking about all of these different
5 minutes
ideas.
spent now already. Move
5
one.
minutes. Wow, that's not so. I'm going to go for.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, please.
Didn't they look at b3, him and Fabi? I saw that on the board.
They absolutely
Both
did.
sides were looking at b6 and b3.
It was one of the first moves explored by both boards before going a few different ways.
Look at Gary's face.
Why
Why is
this a surprise or something? Like, I don't get that either. Okay, here I had a different approach, Maurice, because you put your queen and bishop on the battery, imagining, for argument's sake, knight g3, and imagine I play d6. You know what I'm trying to do right away, which was to shut down the diagonal. I don't think you want to play d4 in these positions. You know, it just doesn't feel like. I think you actually want to play for f4, but say bishop here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So bishop here, say f6, say castles.
Ooh.
Just for argument's sake, and knight f7.
I think I do want to play. Wait a second.
But I've got this guy really, really well protected.
But d4 is already threatening d5, no?
d4 does threaten d5. Munch, bishop.
Okay, you are preparing castles. But
Again,
castles also runs into bishop c4.
bishop c4. Yeah, that is true.
I mean, just that diagonal.
Yeah,
action is going to be a
you're
little problematic.
you're
Gary's finally moved. We've been able to
Here
muse
we go.
for quite some time and give us
6 minutes spent. 6 minutes spent, by the way, for B6.
b6 alone. I hope that Vichy doesn't spend 6 minutes right now.
Oh, please no.
James,
We've
would
got
you
it.
please remind me what kind of game they're playing? Is this a rapid game?
It's not classical. This is not 90-30. No, it's 25-10 is what we're playing here. So 6 minutes spent only to maintain symmetry off of move number 1.
What did you call it? Younger brother copying you?
That's
Now it's older brother copying. It was my little sister.
Little sister copying.
You can sense the agitation we're feeling off of that. You know, I gotta wonder what Vichy's thinking right now. Really? 6 minutes for that?
Yeah,
6 minutes for that?
I'm good. I'm glad you spent 6 minutes on that move.
Yeah, I would be too. I would say
is
no
going
problem.
Well done. Like, tip of the hat.
But Gary has done that before.
He has.
In this exact match. And it hasn't come back to haunt him, although it should have.
Yeah, he has not been punished. I mean, that game he won on time, it wasn't because he was ever ahead, actually. He was the guy behind. You know, it's funny. In our little musings, we've been castling queenside. And in this exact Fischer random position, after the move bishop b2, you can castle queenside. You don't have to move the knight. The knight might be perfectly well situated. And since we're going to play bishop b2, it might behoove us to launch these pawns forward. So check this out. Imagine I play g4. I'm just putting some musings on the board. I bring my knight to g3. So essentially, I say to you, you're on a diagonal that's empty. You've got nothing to attack.
Right.
So goodbye. And bishop b2. And I'm saying I'm not castling kingside, I'm castling queenside. Let me just put another silly move on the board for a moment, and this is what I mean. It's so unusual to castle without having to move a knight.
Yes.
Right? So we got a position like this where you might be looking at f4 and throw the pieces, throw the pawns forward. Let's go.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't like the fact that we're able to have this long discussion about a move, and thankfully we saw one there. F4 now on the board.
F4.
He's got to pick up the pace a little bit, but I will say
that
there
was
is
Liam. Liam's F4, knight F2.
F4, and he knew that already.
Yeah.
But I will say there is something quite profound that you can do in a chess game when you are playing against an opponent who needs to play quickly. Is if you slow down the pace, they follow your pace.
Right.
And it's a little bit of a psychological trick that we use in games.
Yes.
If you play quickly with them, they'll speed up also.
Yeah.
But now that you have a little bit of a time advantage, you say, let me just wait, even though I know my next move.
Right.
Let me just wait. It'll slow them down as they might be racing in their minds looking for what you might do. But because you're controlling the pace of the action with just good
Your
time
physical
management,
move.
Right.
No surprise if Garry himself spends 3 minutes right now, as Vishy has spent 3 minutes. You see how Garry had spent 6 minutes? He might go into the tank.
Yeah.
He knows this trick, of course, as well, but it's hard when you're looking at a complex position for the first time.
Hey, mathematically, I win if I spend 3 minutes per 6 minutes of your move, right? Eventually, your clock does hit 0. And right now, Garry has already spent about 1 minute and 30 evaluating this position, looking for his response to F4.
I think they're going to be picking up the pace. And there you go. I wanted to say F6. If you're going to play F4 and put your bishop on B2, I want to close down the diagonal, put the knight on F7. So I'll kind of match you if you don't mind. I'll just play a move here for a moment. I think you want to play G3. I'm not 100% sure. Threatening is a strong word, but anticipating that you were going to put the bishop on G2. Bishop B2, what do we think of this position, James?
I mean, I was actually thinking about an E3 push so I can get my bishop, my light squared bishop, on a diagonal that can pin the knight to the king.
Okay.
Maybe induce another pawn move on that side of the board.
Exactly. So in case you wanted to do this, pinning the knight and provoking, if you will, the move E6 so that the bishop isn't attacking.
Or even E2 and then over to H5.
Okay.
I'm going to split the difference.
Sure.
What about D3?
And again, I like that move very, very much because you're saying this is the weak pawn. This is a weak pawn. I'm going to take it. And if you want to pin the knight to the king, well, guess what? You got it. I mean, this is...
Yeah, of course, there's the H2 pawn hanging now, and we'd have to start some calculation as to whether
who got the best
gained
who got
out of that. That knight being
tree.
pinned on F7 is a good value, but I'm not sure it's worth the clear pawn disadvantage there. This game could become quite wild, by the way, because this knight C3, knight B5 things could start happening as well.
Up.
So the game has really gone off the rails as far as traditional pawn structures. Yes, any opening you know of in standard chess with this pawn structure?
Bird's opening, F2, F4, and B2, B3. A lot of people do play B2, B3, bishop B2, and only F4 thereafter.
You're saying with the white pieces. I'm
Yes.
talking about black setup, mirroring white.
No.
Bird's opening for sure, F4,
Right.
B3 as you mentioned. But black,
No.
F6 and B6,
no.
This is not,
This is
I don't know what
creative.
search I'd have to make on ChessBase or some database to find this structure with white, black doing this and white having this setup as well. This alone by itself is rare.
Oh, for sure.
Would you say this is our trickiest of the 3 positions we've seen across the 3 days?
They're making it tricky. I like the opening position. They're making it tricky. It didn't start tricky. It looks pretty normal. 2 bishops, rooks. I mean, okay, the queen on A1 is a little bit weird.
My king's on his normal starting square. Though.
Exactly. Yeah. But F7, F6, and Vishy, maybe this is his longest thing, and it's move 3. Well, again, apologies to Vishy's fans. You played F2, F4, Vishy for a reason, which was to bring your knight to F2. Get on with it. bring your knight to, thank you.
And there it is.
As Professor Elad Miskashki often said, same move, faster was better.
I like that.
Knight, I mean, he played A, so he could play B, and then he thought 6 minutes over B.
It wasn't quite 6 minutes, he
It
thought.
was close. He was 25.
Yeah, he spent 3 minutes originally in the second move,
But
F4.
knight F2, that move should have been...
Again, it is surprising. They did look at it. I'm sure Liam is sitting there going, we looked at this.
Speed it up, man. Okay.
Yeah, he's trying to make the move for him.
Now, for Garry, I got to say, same comment, right? Like, dude, you played F6. Where else is your knight going to go? You're going to go knight F7. Aren't you? I mean, or is Garry looking to play E5? No, come on. What are we talking about here?
Well, I have to say, the fluidity of the pawn structure, as he is now...
He's played bishop B7?
He's played bishop B7, preventing...
Just refresh.
Preventing the bishop on F1 from being able to move too easily without the pawn on G2 feeling some heat, at least. If we have to make a number of moves in a row now for black, I'd be curious to know what those are. Right? Like exactly what is the long-term setup that black is seeking? So you got a knight on F7. Let's get that.
A pawn on E6.
So you're going to E6 with the pawn.
The bishop goes to E7. Okay. And then I decide where I'm castling. I'm still unclear in my mind. Should I be castling short? Should I be castling queenside?
Now, same question for white. What should be white's next 4 moves?
For me, I'm thinking, look, dude, you're the one who played B3. I'm thinking you're playing in the same style that you had a moment ago. Bishop B2, G4.
Wow.
G5. Ooh. And once you get in G5, notice that the rooks, okay, let me just put that on the board so I can at least show the potential of what I'm saying. So I'm trying to blast open this diagonal. Soon I'll put my bishop on the diagonal, right? But imagining that you had a brain infarction, oops, the rooks
are pinned.
Pinned.
That rook is pinned.
So I'm thinking G4, bishop B2, G5, H4, bam, 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 bam. Soften up the diagonal?
Nope. He's played more quietly with the move knight to C3. And the
not on our radar
at all. This
Knight
is what we've seen. We've seen him play much more reserved chess, and it's just not quite Vishy that we want to see.
It's funny, in the opening, I always say your goal is to control the center, bring your pieces to effective squares, safety for your king. That's it. That's your 3 goals. But the knight on C3, number 1, is not effectively placed. It's actually kind of in the way. I mean, C4 would have been a better square. So I'm thinking the priority was the bishop on C1, get that diagonal. The priority was G4, G5, open up the king side a bit, and let the knight on B1 stay there. So knight C3, what does it...
Where's it trying to go?
Yeah, what's the idea? Support E4? What do you think, Maurice? Support E4? But then I like a comment that you had made, James, which was bring this bishop, but you were making it for white, by the way. Bring this bishop out, bring it either to D6 or to C5, because you were making that comment that the diagonal was potentially weak. So I'm not feeling this for Vishy. I want to go knight to D4. I want to go bishop C5.
Really odd to block the diagonal.
Yeah.
Really odd to block that diagonal. However, the Indians giving this position
balanced,
more or less equal. It's not a hyper-aggressive position. It is a position that has come, or I should say a move that has come as a tad bit of a surprise to Garry, as it has to us. Again, maybe a good thing if the position is still balanced. If you can keep playing moves that Garry will seek optimal responses for, and we know that is Kasparov. If you make a move that he feels smells funny, he starts looking for something near refutation level, or to make your position seem really bad. So he might be searching for that right now, and we can only hope that, for Vishy's sake, Garry takes more time.
That's what I was about to say. Dipping below 15 minutes for the first time here in game number 1. Garry Kasparov on the black side of the board. Now, of course, you at home have the great fortunes of listening to these two brilliant gentlemen when it comes to analyzing the position. If you're in the studio itself, though, in the St. Louis Chess Club, look at that. Fabiano Caruana holding court, if you will, with a bunch of our VIPs, a little bit of live analysis and commentary from him, and the opportunity to Q&A a bit around the positions themselves. But gotta wonder, since he was directly a part of that analysis, now how he's feeling about how the two players have navigated in the initial opening moves.
He's off the hook, because there's no way that they looked at this precise position. I see in the audience International Master John Donaldson, many, many time captain of the U.S. Olympic team, enjoying Bobby's lecture there. Knight c3, the more I'm looking at the move Knight c3, the less I like it. I really do. It's not that I despise it or anything like that. That's going too far. But I just don't understand, where is the knight going? The knight is not going to b5. That threat on the c7 pawn can easily be protected either by castling. Like
Castling looks really funky in that situation.
Like that just deals with the one moment threat. And by the way, get out of here, skedaddle. I'm going to play a7, a6 next. So, and if you don't play e4, I just don't know what the knight is doing here. It's not going to. I don't get it. I'm sorry that I just.
It's hard to you can't justify it.
I can't justify it. No, not at all. And in my mind, Vishy could easily slip into a difficult position. You've given up the d4 square. I haven't given up the d5 square. I'm going to go knight c6.
And there it is.
There's your
move. On the board.
Yeah.
Again, you say same move faster.
He's down. Hold on, come on.
12:42 on the clock.
He's used half his time for the first 4 moves. I'd be jumping up and down and saying, Garry, you can't do that. Listen to me. Don't do that.
So you've got one guy who's played a knight c3 move you don't like, and you got the other guy mishandling his time
terribly.
Which is worse?
So far in this tournament.
Tiny Val.
But it's kind of been the other way in this tournament. Garry's gotten away with the lack of time control. Right?
Exactly.
At some point, Vishy equalizes with Garry, more or less. So now, Vishy, having put his knight on c3, he must have had a point, but as he's been sitting there, not moving at all, you have to wonder, should I have put my knight on c3? Right. And did he see the move e6? Was he ready for this move? That's going to be the question. Can I find a quick move-ish? Maybe a minute, think. No more than a minute in this moment, please. You spend too much time, you're going to lose that time advantage. And again, he doesn't have to have an advantage coming in at the opening. He just has to have a good position.
A good position.
Decent position to play. That's all you really need. Although that pawn on g2 is really feeling a little bit of pressure along the.
Well, that's because Garry hasn't played the move knight to c6. If I'm in Vishy's shoes, look, Vishy, you know you're going to need bishop b2. Forget about everything else. That's an essential. So put that move on the board. I think it's now almost a certainty that you need the pawn on a g4, not just because of the pressure against the pawn on g2, but so you can soften up the diagonal. A very useful move, by the way, e2, e3. I don't see that as an absolute essential. Now when I play g4, I at least have to be cognizant of bishop f3 as maybe as one of those disrupting moves. If I'm in Garry's shoes, I'm playing knight f7. A la tempo, let's go. And again, I just don't know what the knight on c3 is doing. I mean, what role are you doing? What role are you playing?
All right, well, it's history now.
Let's go.
It's history. We've got to move on from it.
Right.
Garry, however, is spending some time. You're giving knight f7 as a natural move here.
Very natural.
Is Garry at the board even? I'm not getting a wide shot.
He's been strolling around.
Not so far this game. This game, I've noticed he's been.
Not.
He wasn't at the board. He just came back, rushed back. So he lost a minute just on that alone, that excursion, and had to come back to the board quickly, maybe to wash his face or something. But he is definitely down a full 5 minutes on that.
So knight f7, let's go. As black, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to seize the center with c5 and d5 and d4. So I want to shut down the queen on a1. Go ahead and tell me what you think.
Let's just play bishop b2 because you should.
Bishop b2 because you should. Let's play c5 because we should.
Let's cackle.
Cackle. I'm with you. Let's go knight c6.
All right, now let's g4, and it's time to go.
It's g4, time to go. There's no way I'm castling into that, so I'm just going to... I'm not castling short. No, I'll go with my center control
I own
idea.
a lot of space here as black.
I own a lot of space. That's
I
exactly
give you
it.
space. There's nothing I can do about that now, so I'm just going to g5 it. And
G5, I shut you down.
But g5,
I can take it, too.
you can also take if you're interested. Okay, but
That's
I
a
will have
nasty
I
tempo.
will have a bishop h3 hit in a
Siding.
second.
Yep.
Do I want to do it first and just start sacrificing? You know me. I have to see what it looks like.
Okay. Shall we take it?
No. That's the point.
sorry.
I want to play
If you
bishop
go
h3.
Bishop
Bishop
h3.
h3, now do I have to bring my bishop
Because
back?
if you take,
Yep.
then the center opens up,
Yep.
and bishop e6 is always going to be a move.
Oh, that's a
I'm not
strong
even
move.
sure I need it now, but it looks like a
Very strong
attractive move. in fact.
Oh, definitely. No, I don't think I want to allow that trade. I would not want to allow that trade. You know what? I'm gonna take care of my king. I'm gonna park my king just like you did. I'll cackle.
All right, so now if I play g5,
In
why
this
not?
position?
Why not? I want to put my bishop on h3 is my goal. Takes.
Okay, so remember when I was criticizing shutting down that diagonal for white? Well, guess what? I'm the one ready to pounce. Knight f3.
I don't have any sexy knight jumps.
Hey,
Nowhere I
man.
can find.
That's not a chess term. That's not in my informant.
Well, with Garry being the first to dip below 10 minutes, he did bring his knight out over here to
Let's
F7,
refresh the current position.
just to take a look.
Knight f7. Okay. We might be seeing this whole concept, at least, of c5, knight c6, castles, queenside. My d5 was premature because you pointed out bishop h3, Maurice. So I'll chill. I'll chill on that.
See, the thing is, you get to take back moves.
Yeah, that's the
doesn't.
strength of being a commentator. I mean, oh, that didn't work. Bye. Next.
Right. So now Vishy has a nice lead on the clock. Now he just needs to play a couple of natural moves, but he is continuing to play the slow foot, keep it calm strategy.
Thoughtful.
I want you to be down to about 4 minutes on the clock before I speed up.
Right.
And if he could just maintain this lead and have a good position,
Yep.
then he can start thinking positive.
Lull him. Yeah. Keep him moving at a nice slow pace. Has any
lull him,
player
lull him.
tipped their cap in terms of which direction they're castling yet? Or
I
both
think-
ways still feel an option on both sides?
I think how it's evolved so far, castling queenside is the go-to for both players because the diagonals, the long diagonals, when you see the queen and bishop lined up like this, you don't want to put
go
the
that way.
king
So-
underneath that
I would be
pressure.
stunned.
So
Right?
Stunned if I saw castles kingside.
So we've been talking, though, then,
Jess.
about G-pawn, H-pawn.
Let's go.
But why don't we go the other way? If I know
Yes.
that you're most likely taking your king to the left-hand side of the board, to the queen
Queen
side,
side.
let's throw the A-pawn forward.
Yeah, potentially opening up for A5 and the queen. It's sensible, but you're losing control of the center when you're doing that. And it's not exactly clear if you get the pawn to A5, is this useful or not? So, for example, let's say I just ignore you and I invite you to advance your pawn. By the way, that's not checkmate. But it
it's
hurt.
close.
It's very dangerous.
It's
But it
close.
hurt. A moment ago, you could castle and protect
Right.
the pawn on c2. Here, you're going to have to move your queen, and maybe that's not what you wanted when
Well,
you
what if
played
I-
a5.
What if I
Okay, we're going to go back.
wait for A5?
Yep,
Can we bring our bishop out
yep,
to open up castling rights?
exactly. And then at the end of the day, you probably should castle, let's say.
That knight on b4 looks pretty compelling, though. It's
Yeah,
hard
he's
to
a strong
chase this
piece.
guy
Yeah.
out of position.
Maybe something like this, where essentially the move a2, a4, what you thought was useful, weakened for the moment.
Okay.
Weakened for the moment. But,
This didn't move.
We have a move on the board.
the funny part about that whole a4, if you had started it with a4, I would have been, okay, I understand this. You want to go a5, queen a4, but he started it with b3.
I'm not going to lie to you, though. I do like the move a4, but at the right time. The timing is just not quite right just yet.
Okay.
By putting the bishop on b2 and being able to castle, it's a nice thing. But you do know if you castle that way, a4 suddenly becomes a target, and you can play a5, a6.
Yeah.
You have the tempo. Black will probably be compelled to play the move a5 if white plays a4 later, but not just yet.
Something prophylactic like bringing our knight over to d3 then to guard that b4 square before starting.
Playing a4 makes sense.
In time. Right now, white is very flexible. White has multiple possibilities. The g4 push is seemingly the most compelling because of the pawn break on g5. So if you were able to get this pawn up down the board, like, where's the break? That's what
g5.
Where's the break? G5 looks like a break. You might be able to play h4 first and then go for this. And so knight c6 on the board now by Garry. So white is able to castle. No worries there. A4 becomes a little less compelling now as well.
Attractive,
so knight c6 was another move that may have stopped the A4 idea. So it's all about flexibility and developing your pieces in the opening instead of committing to any specific idea. And here we see that Garry's doing that at the moment. I do believe that sooner or later G4 is going to be the money move with A4, H4 on top. And this knight B5 unleashing the bishop along the long diagonal with G5 pushes.
Yeah, what's Vishy is, Gary's up and out off the table. Vishy turning appealing to the arbiter for
Could I
something.
have a glass of water?
Maybe a glass of water. Maybe changing the temperature.
Yeah, just a little chill. A lonely man, by the way, is there. Knight c6, not a big fan. I would have prefaced it with c5, but okay, we are here, and we have a move.
Castles.
Castle on the board.
Maybe he asked Chris, look, I'm going to castle. When you made your opening comments about moving your king first, I want you to watch this. Could you give me your stamp of approval, Chris? Did I do it right?
It's Gary's turn. He doesn't have to move his rook to castle in this situation.
Yeah, he did.
He almost went for the two-hander.
Did he move with his left hand and hit the clock with the right?
He did.
That's not allowed either. What's going on? Is that what I saw happen?
Yeah, I think he did.
It seems that he moved with his left hand and hit the right. You're supposed to.
Here it is.
So,
he almost went for it.
He points.
So he held it with both. I think he did it with. It was a two-handed king move there.
Double touch.
That's
pretty
he reached
funny.
for the king.
Double dribble.
No, he
touched
looks
the king. He
traveling.
Touches the rook. I mean, that's the most complex chess move.
It was almost like a magician's move, you know, distraction.
And finally, we have G4. Finally, we have G4. Again, I think with the pawn on C5, that whole idea of grabbing the center makes more sense. Also, with the pawn on C7, my queen feels ever, as does white's, ever more tightly bound into the position. Again, imagining that the pawn was on C5, there would be an out, right? Queen B8 and potentially even menacing the H2 pawn. Now the question is breaks.
The break, G5. By the way, since Garry played knight C6, you were actually decrying this placement of the knight on the C3 square,
Guilty.
C6 square. So at the moment, we have a situation where that's been nullified.
Yes.
I played a bad knight move, you played a bad knight move. Maybe you can judge virtues or not. Now it's about the remaining structure, and we look at Black's pawn structure, particularly the centrally placed pawns, these three right here, versus what White chose, which is this and this. And this G4 move really looks nice.
More space.
It will be followed up by H4. It will be followed up by G5. It's not so easy for you to play G5 because that weakens this button right here.
Right.
And there's some disco attacks, knight to e4, hitting the f6 square. This is starting, maybe it wasn't great to start with, but this is starting to look like a teeny tiny bit of pull for white.
I believe you. I really believe you that white actually has gotten ever so slightly the initiative thanks to the pawn being on g4, ready to soften up the diagonal, just as you've been describing. Also, don't forget that the bishop, if it comes out to d3, it will do so with a tempo. Conversely, this bishop coming to d6 is blocked by the pawn on f4. So white's f4 and g4 gives him that extra space and a greater initiative.
Yeah, so things looking good on the board here for Vishy so far, looking even better on the clock. As
Let's
Garry
take a look at that clock.
Rapidly approaching
2 to
6
1.
minutes. Exactly, a 2-to-1 advantage here in terms of minutes.
If Vishy doesn't win this game, oh my goodness. I mean, look at this. He's got a nice position. It only 8 moves in, but still a nice position. Garry has wasted 19 minutes to play 8 moves. Vishy's got a slight pull, got a g5 plan, clear plan in mind, h4, g5, and Garry has dipped below 6 minutes, and he's played.
Bravo, good move. h6.
h6?
H6. I like that. I like that because it basically says, I know what you're doing. You're playing h4 and g5. The pawn on h7 was a potential weakness. Once you play g5, I'm going to get rid of my weakness. Now, again, for me, I'm beginning to feel like the queen is misplaced. I didn't like the move bishop f8, by the way, bishop f8 to e7. I would have played knight here. What's the idea? Just the idea is whoop,
opening it up.
Opening up that diagonal. And if you chase me, there's no reason for you to chase me, by the way. I'm more than willing to make this trade because I'm thinking that I really want to play bishop to d3, and I really want to open up that.
You mean?
Yeah, bishop. Yeah, and really open up that diagonal.
You get
None
excited,
of this
yes.
Yeah, I know. None of this happened because
bishop
e7.
What you just did, I was going to sack a pawn, but okay, we'll leave that variation.
Sack a pawn?
Alone.
I want a pawn. You see, James? I want a pawn.
You guys are perfect,
perfect match
for each other. Yeah.
But look, I will say this, though.
What's that?
h6, as much as it stops the g5 break,
and it does
weaken some squares over on that side. I can't see how to exploit that g6 square just yet because I can't get a knight to land on that square. But h5 does permanently affect that structure and may be worth going for. We've seen Vishy play like this, the more space grabbing as opposed to dynamic opening of the position. So maybe this is a move he'll be considering. But Garry's not to 607, he's at 1041. Does he want to keep that slow play? You notice when he played h4 very quickly, Garry responded with bishop e7 instantly. Again, it's that Jedi mind trick. If you play fast, I'll play fast. So maybe Vish was like, you know what?
I'll slow it down.
Right, we're not in crunch time yet.
Yeah, let me slow it down again.
Back down.
Because I want you to think about my next move, whatever that is. What's a surprise move here for him to play?
That's one. That's a bit of a surprise move.
That's definitely one.
Well,
by the way,
yesterday I was asking you about what Vishy looks like at his best, and you said at times it's playing both sides of the board, right? Where he can create an attack on one side and then quickly switch up and start throwing pieces on the other side of the board. So as quickly as g4 and h4 come out, now we're launching the a-pawn too?
It's funny. The move I wanted was knight b4. Guess what he just did? King b8. Again, I think the players are missing opportunities. I'm not 100% sure about this, but how do you like the move f5? Very surprise move. So the idea is, I want to win a pawn. Bishop takes h4 is on my agenda. You're going to play g5. Now, the question you're going to ask yourself is, who benefited? You got the pawn on g5, for example. I go here. This knight on f2, kind of stuck, right? I have ideas of e5. I have ideas of d5. Maybe rook h8.
I'm sorry.
He didn't play
go to d3.
Intuitively, I wanted to take that pawn on f5.
Oh, you did? Okay, let's go.
Just hit it.
Let's go. Let's have a look-see.
Wait, I didn't take the pawn yet.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, now you're hitting my knight. I could take and hit your knight.
Yeah, like something like this,
Let's do that. And now...
Let's see. If I take, you take.
I also have rook g2. I also have rook g2 against...
Oh, sorry. Maurice, apologies. They just
They're starting to pick up the pace because the clock is starting to become relevant.
I heard you theory crafting, and they decided...
A3, okay, a reasonable move. King B8, always nice to tuck the king in. Remember when we said the bishop comes out and potentially hits the G6? Look at Garry go, D5. And I've been waiting for this move, D5. I would like to have seen it with C5 as well, but D5, go ahead.
I'm not a fan of bishop D3. I feel like the bishop belonged on another diagonal.
Like potentially even H3, yeah?
But yes, and it seems to me that the bishop hadn't decided where it belongs yet.
Right.
That the position needed to clarify itself for us to know where that bishop should go. Not King B1. No, I would have been seeking out some pawn moves. Like which one should I be playing? H5, G5.
I think you actually wanted H5.
H5 was a nice clamp move.
Let's see what we got.
D5 now. So
what do we have?
Gary played the move King B8 to get off potential E6 shots, by the way, and just in case.
Well, Bishop H3
is happening. But now the position is pregnant with possibilities for breaks.
Yeah,
D4. F5 is a move. E4 is a move. Right, let's just show that. There's this one break here, another break here, and another break there. All of these are worth thinking about. Of course, black has breaks as well. The move D4 being a compelling one. E4 is an expansion move. And then there's G5, which looks maybe even possible as well, but maybe favor white a little bit. But now that this has happened, the game has gone into deep complexity, and flow is needed.
And the clock advantage is shrinking.
Exactly. The complexity and his reach, and now Vishy has decided to use a tempo to hit the knight.
Yeah, Bishop G6, I like this move a lot. The idea was, and Gary, I think, picked up on it right away. If you do move the knight, you were talking about breaks. There is a knight takes D5 sighting after the move F5. So Gary played the move Rook H8, Rook G8 to F8. And I'm expecting what you said, Maurice. Clamp it down.
He's already been made, though. He's going to drop his knight back to E2 instead.
Okay. Thank goodness. I mean, I really didn't like that knight clogging up the diagonals. Knight E2, reasonable move. I would have reached for that H-pawn, actually. I like the bishop's loose. So just keep your pieces protected. I like the H5. I like knight E2.
I think Vishy is keeping in mind the possibility of the move G5, blasting open the diagonal. That Gary's going to have to study this possibility because Bishop G7 is going to be problematic. So G5 is on tap, and it's just something that needs to be calculated. And if you have to calculate, what happens? Your time starts to fall. And now he's, under 5 minutes for the first time. And Gary now sitting up in his chair. What is Black's main plan now that Vishy has all this multiplicity of possibilities? By the way, there's also a sneaky one I just noticed as well. Talk about your pawn grubber, Yasser Seirawan.
Yes.
There is a knight G3, knight H5 sighting.
I like that.
Right? Like just a little bit. Like maybe you have to think about this too.
That's a tease. Knight G3, knight H5.
And if I just put the knight there, because my knight's not necessarily doing anything right now.
Go away.
I put the knight there, you'll have to always think about the fact that my knight can take this pawn, or maybe go to H5. You know, maybe I won't go, maybe I will. You don't know. I think this is exactly the position Vishy wants in this moment, and Gary's feeling the pressure.
The clock.
Feeling the pressure of the clock. And earlier, I saw your mouse slide over to that queen for just a moment, the top left corner. I mean, that feels like a very unhappy queen.
It is. I'm all for now, especially with the knight no longer protecting A4 square. I'm all for A5 and queen A6. But the thing that I don't like is I don't like this bishop literally in my position, in my business. I didn't like Bishop E7 when he played it. I like Bishop D6 now, just to kick that guy out. Would you please?
There we go.
Gary,
a move made.
It took him 2 minutes to play this obvious move.
Something that's become a bit of a pattern here across our 3 days of play. He's going into those final stretches with Gary well below in terms of the clock.
Wow. Well, what's up with G5? Like, what are you doing about G5? The diagonal.
Let's have a look-see.
All right.
Takes. Pause for a moment. I don't like this diagonal blasting open, so e5. Let's shut you down.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
For just a moment, if I can. I mean, a few moves in, I haven't really been a fan of what Garry has done. I think Vishy...
What if I take on f6 here and then play knight g4? What is that about? Is that not effective at all?
Don't know. Will it be effective?
I mean, let's just pause. You may have moves.
Of course.
I don't doubt you have moves.
Of course.
But initiative?
All white.
All white.
All white.
Lines opening, things for black to consider. Better get on your defensive shoes because white has an open G line, beautiful pieces on the G file, and f4 with f takes e5 on the board. G5 played.
Yeah.
G5 played. This is
Quick recapture.
I don't like
golden opportunity. And Garry has played your move. We may see the line we were discussing.
I didn't have a choice, though, Maurice. The move G5, what you just played, it was designed to soften up the diagonal. I'm now playing defensive chess. I'm trying to shut it down. But just consider what black has done. Garry went bishop e7. Then he moved his bishop again. He's moved his rook defensively. Vishy, on the other hand, is, as you said, ready to pounce effectively with knight g4. And this queen is not as effective as this queen.
Exactly. The usefulness of the piece,
yes.
The queen on a1 is developed right now. It may not seem that way, but it is performing a function, and that is all you want for your pieces. And that diagonal we're looking at right now, the beautiful diagonal all the way down here, that queen is supporting that bishop, supporting these two pawns, this knight about to harmonize just as well as everybody's hitting the center dramatically. Vishy just has to choose whether or not he plays knight g4 first or takes what I tried, takes and that, and he's trying to decide between the two. We've seen him make a mistake with whichever one, but it seems to me, takes and knight g, and here it comes. He's captured, forced move. What does Garry have now with the move knight g4? And there
it is.
The move is on the board. So.
I have no choice. I have no choice. Whether I like it or not isn't the issue. White is attacking the pawn on f6. I don't want to lose the pawn on f6. Worse, I hate that bishop staring in my business. So, ready? Go.
But isn't that where your knight started the game?
Look, I could have this move. I could have saved myself a lot of tempi. Exactly.
You were talking about him making moves, bishop e7, bishop d6. Now is the knight having to do just
that. If I recall, that was at least a 3-minute move. Bringing that knight off that little square.
Thank you, James.
Give me that time back.
Yeah. So,
good point.
But does he have a choice? And he's thinking about it.
It's embarrassing to make that move. Garry doesn't want to play knight h8.
I didn't want to play knight h8, but forced moves are forced moves.
So by all accounts, Vishy has winning chances and has put himself in brilliant position in this game.
Agreed.
But he's been in that situation already before across our previous 2 days and has kind of fumbled the ball, let's say, near the end zone. And now it's a question of can he actually bring this one over the line, score those 3 points, and bring this well within touching distance.
Today is a new day. Today is a new day. Vishy so far has played very, very well. We're impressed. And now Garry is the one feeling the heat and on the clock as well as the position. By the way, 6 minutes to
2:30.
It's
only
almost
2:30
to 1 advantage.
I mean,
and it feels
if
like
you don't win this,
you're not going to get better. You're not going to get much better opportunities than what you have right now.
Sorry, he already had better opportunities.
What other considerations could there be where you can defend the pawn and aside from this knight move? You got to bring the bishop back again?
Well, the other move that I really did not want to play, it's kind of a counter move. Again, it's blocking this diagonal, even if it's just for a moment. Like, let me play poorly, if you don't mind, for just a second, and say, okay, rather than defending, I'm going to go, laughing as I say it, on the attack. There's knight d7 check. What am I even saying?
No, but then you can take it and play bishop e3. Let's show that line.
Oh.
I was busy calculating it as you spoke. I wasn't sure if this was any good.
At first I saw it and I stopped, but you're absolutely
check,
right.
King B1 makes the
No,
most
but this
sense.
isn't what you.
That's a nasty
This
point.
isn't what you wanted when you go here. So
Down
I'm
below
saying
a minute 30.
There's a knight on F7 hanging. There's a bishop on G1. It's the weirdest
It's weird.
position
Down
because
below
the
a minute
queens.
30.
So
Good point. Oh, boy.
There's only two ideas that I've seen: D4, a counter-attacking move, and knight H8, a defensive move. And Garry has no time.
Actually, now just glance at the engine. D4 is the only move to play, and Garry did find the move. This is the only move that makes any sense at all.
Okay, so tell me what I'm missing. Knight F6. Did I do it right when I took on E3, Maurice? Crickets.
Yeah. Don't look at me. I'm not the grandmaster.
Knight's got to move, gain a little tempo. Oh, that way chasing your knight out.
Or trying to chase the knight out.
Yeah, and then you get the bishop. I don't really want you to have my bishop, but something's happening here that I don't like. I grab the pawn, and the position, suddenly black has open lines. That's
you didn't like what happened.
Something to be a little bit careful.
D4 on the board. Vishy's got a huge time advantage. But can he convert? He's let so many advantages slip in the first 2 days of play.
Well, this is where you use that time then, right?
Yeah.
This is the right moment.
This is the moment.
To give it a think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm a pawn grabber, so can I play it the most simple? I want to play simple chess.
Go for it.
Give me your knight.
Got to take.
Okay, got to recapture. Yeah.
Give me your bishop.
Looks like you have to take with a pawn.
Give me a pawn.
And now you got your pawn.
Oh.
But
the rook has an X-ray attack. I was playing simple chess, and I forgot that the
bishop
rook...
A3 comes
bishop
in. Yeah.
So you don't lose material at the end of this.
Luckily, but excuse me, your back rank looks a little
it looks.
Yeah. I still much prefer the white queen to the black queen in this situation.
Maybe
this is not possible.
Out of the blue, I have a huge initiative.
Because bishop C8 will be forced in a second.
No, this is actually
that looks lost.
Easily much in the favor of Vishy. So again, I'm doing it in the... I always look at the most forcing moves first. They are checks and captures. There's no checks in the position, but there are captures. So I took a knight, I took a pawn, I took another pawn. Yes, I'm ready to take another pawn. Yes.
He has taken on E5 instead, move 1. He could still transpose. He could still transpose, right?
He could take on...
takes and then take on F7 on the very next move.
I'm a little bit surprised that Vishy did it this way because he's giving his opponent, Garry. He's giving Garry the option of capturing the knight. So a moment ago, you were taking that knight off the board, and that was it. Now can we go down this primrose path? Yes.
And Garry has done it.
Golly, I think Vishy just let again. I think he let something very clear just slip. Maybe this is still in his favor, but this is not as
He's
clear.
Going straight down this line with the rook. As you mentioned, the rook is not on F7. That dynamic tempi that you gained when you took. The bishop on G6 now looks like it's just biting on air.
Exactly.
Right?
It's doing nothing.
What is it doing? It could have destroyed this knight. It would have fulfilled its purpose.
And weakened the back rank.
And weakened the back row. But maybe there was something that didn't allow that to be necessarily a good idea. But Garry now...
options to recapture. He goes with the pawn.
Oh, he is thinking that the rook on F8 is... you can't take on A3 because the rook on F8 is hanging. This is what Vishy... That was why Vishy did not play the move bishop takes F7.
This was his calculation. Vishy saw all of this and said, I'm winning a pawn. But may I ask this question? Is this pawn enough to win the game? I mean, we are talking about a 4 against 3.
On the same side.
There's Garry. Garry
By the way, did you see that little twist?
I'll just trade off even more pieces. And who says that you have any advantage whatsoever in a position that looks pretty liquidated?
Well, I mean, I'm a pawn grubber. I've lived all my life with a pawn. So, yeah, I would say it's a kind of a 2-result game. Maybe there was more a moment ago than there is now. But you're right. It's only a pawn, as opposed to the position he had was maybe pawn and initiative. Here, he no longer has initiative.
Initiative is gone.
Is gone.
Exactly. It is just sucked up in the position, and now Garry just has to defend. Can Vishy keep any fires burning in this position? I hate positions where the pieces are all symmetrical.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is what we have, especially when knights have left the board. The trick factor is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
No
the
more
hustle
trickies.
is just not there. It's all these linear pieces. We talk about chess geometry. It's all these linear pieces. And how do you break through? I think this position is just pretty even.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, the black queen is breathing.
By the way, breathing very, very nicely in case you did want to trade and, let's just say, protect.
That's a Magnus
the pawn on
Carlsen
D2.
queen right there. Middle of the board.
Yeah, right? The rook drops in, rook F2, the bishop drops in, and by
Sorry,
the way...
I like black now.
Yeah, the initiative is just completely
But do you
fizzled.
like black with 52 seconds on the clock?
I think black is fine.
Still
I think moves
fine
are
with
easy.
it.
10
Okay.
seconds per move being gained. I think Vishy took his foot off the gas because he saw a clear pawn and just went for it. Let me just grab that pawn. 2-result game. I'm starting to feel like Garry's the one. I mean, okay, I can't claim he's trying to win this position.
No, I think
but,
he's
but I think he's comfortable.
I think he's comfortable. I still, again, I'm a pawn grabber. I got to go with the pawn. King B2, D3. Let's trade some rooks. Let's trade some bishops. I mean,
What? Queen and pawn ending you want?
no, I don't.
You don't want the queen and pawn ending. Trade what?
It's being.
If you're
it's
Vishy, you want to go
dealt.
back. You want to go back 7 moves.
It's being dealt to me. Queen C1. Oh, yeah, Garry.
More trades incoming.
I mean, for Garry, a draw is a perfect result here in game number 1.
Oh, well, of
Right.
course. And from the position he had, because we think he was on the back foot literally from the start. But Garry is going for a major piece ending. Bishop takes, queen takes C3, queen to D4, but it's the clock and the fact that he's going to be a pawn down.
He can't force all the pieces off the board, however, not
No.
so easily. Maybe there's a way, but 19.4 seconds and
Garry.
quickly.
He's got to check the clock just like
Garry.
Vishy
Bishop
failed to do
takes
yesterday.
What is happening?
He was entertaining the idea of the bishop trades. There we go. He will go for it.
I
Now the
thought
queen
he's
comes
supposed
out,
to
and
play-
now he's offering a queen trade.
Yeah, I thought he was
well.
going to do this like perfunctory. Like the moment he played for queen D5 and bishop E5, I thought he was going for these major trades. Now the question is, should I go into a straight rook and pawn endgame?
No.
With 4...
Not if you could have. Oh, well,
Nope.
he's there.
He's going to.
He's
not
there.
if, you were about to say, not if you can avoid it.
That was, to me, it was the moment to think about, is there a move I can play to avoid the queen trade?
Queen C6 might have been
Queen
that move.
C6 maybe. Just something. But maybe it didn't lead anywhere, and I wouldn't doubt that it was equal. But this ending, I'm not a big fan of because the rook should be able to defend quite comfortably. But you can torture in a 4 against 3.
Oh, yes.
I mean, there's,
Oh, yes.
especially the extra rook, you could torture the player. Of course, you're talking about Garry Kasparov, but maybe the time edge. Let's see if Vishy can maybe pull a rabbit out of a hat.
So
By the way,
what's my
A5.
pathway forward then? If I'm playing white, I've got the extra pawn, but otherwise we're equivalent 2 rooks apiece. Where does that winning move? What's the winning situation, I should say? If we could transport pieces on the board where white now comes out on top, what does that look like?
It's a long-term strategy. It's not something that you just instantly put on the board. It's creepy crawly. You play moves like C3, D3, Rook D2, King C2, D4. Slowly you prep it. C4. Again, very
Patience
slow,
justified.
patient moves. But I wanted to say that this is an absolutely critical move. A7, A5. You don't want to see white getting a little bit of a clamp with B4, King B3. And any pawn moves helps the defender enormously.
Garry's headed with his rook on D4 to the C5 square. That rook wants to guard any ideas you might have about hitting C7, while also getting, and that's why this move was played. He might, however, play rook D6 and put it on C6.
Similar idea.
Same point. Let me control that pawn on C2 and see how you make progress if I have the rook hitting your C2 pawn.
That would be forcing me to keep a passive rook, which is not something I
By the way,
would want.
He has another idea. Oh, okay, he's chosen this path. He has another idea is to put the rook on h2, that same rook, and ask you, how do you make progress, my friend?
That rook I wouldn't be that worried about because I would transfer
your rook to c4. That's
and that would be I would have an active rook.
This position is technically a draw.
Correct.
Okay. Technically, best play.
With best play, you would
if
expect.
Only white could get that rook. Ooh,
well, that helps the pawn trade.
All right.
AB, AB. That's very, very good for black. I would imagine Garry would want to see rook c6, rook c1, put that move on the board.
At some point, I imagine our king has to come up to b3 so we can get our c-pawn moving? Or?
Yes, yes. So a move like king b3 makes perfect sense. And you have to go passively with the rook.
Seems like no other move.
For the moment, rook c1. And then you very slowly bring the rook back. Maybe even with b5, but
he's thinking of advancing
c3.
Okay,
no.
He changed his mind.
I think he said, wait a minute, I'm not right. That's a little soft.
Offer of a trade. I'd play rook d5 here.
To avoid.
Say I'm not trading with you. And there we go.
I think the real unfortunate reality here is you can take a look at the clocks, and now all of a sudden we're equivalent.
b5.
He has gotten in b5, but then that move c7, c6, not immediately, but that will ensure a further trade of of pawns. Pardon me. c7, c6 is basically unpreventable at this point, and it's 2 versus 1, and that's really theoretically.
Yeah, no, Garry's going to get out of this one alive for sure. We'll see if Vishy can conjure up some magic. But this ending, winning that pawn, the way he won the pawn was not quite.
It's about the clock as well.
He has played c3, however.
Yeah.
Keeping some of the bite in the position.
So he wants his king on c4. He wants his pawn on d4. And he says, okay, I've maximized what I could potentially do. Garry says, well, I'm here to harass you. I want to threaten
mate into a mate threat. What?
So I will probably play d4.
Now my king has an escape route.
Look at Vishy like, whoa. Chill.
Whoa. He said rook b1.
The clocks are
interested in getting
entirely equalized at this point as well.
Okay.
I mean, good thing he played that move, by the way, because Garry just conjured up. Can you imagine a mating idea in the position?
Let's just show the
let's just show it really quickly if he had played.
So imagine that Vishy had reached for his rook and allowed this check. This is really embarrassing.
Yeah.
There's no place to park the king. Everything is in. That did not happen.
No.
Let's stress.
Defend the square, or he had to create that escape route with the pawns.
Let's stress. It did not happen.
Okay, the threat is back.
Again.
This could be the beginning of a repetition then.
Check, and mate is on the... I'm thinking d4.
And he has repeated.
There's the beginnings of a repetition.
Now rook to e5.
And he said, okay, you still... I'll suck your blood. Is that what Garry?
That's what Garry said.
Yeah. Oh, rook. Okay. That's a funny move. Maybe you're threatening to force the trade of a pair of rooks.
Yes.
With rook a3, check, followed by rook a1. So Garry's goal is very simple. He wants to force a trade of rooks and get rook and 3 versus rook and 2. And that, again, is getting closer and closer to a draw. The coveted draw he needs to secure the match. And
the time for Vishy has, for the first time in the game, dipped below Garry's, as he's realizing that the bite he hoped was in the position has not been neutralized.
I normally wouldn't be too concerned with this many pieces left on the board in Super GMs with 10 seconds of increment, but we saw what happened just the other day. Vishy just failed to check in with his clock at a certain point.
He faded right out. The clock wasn't
And it was from a minute to 0 that it happened. And now 30 seconds said, okay, the d-pawn will move forward. It does create that escape path for the king.
And this is the problem, that Garry can now force a trade of rooks with rook check, and king c4, rook there. And he's just going to chase this rook down and force its eventual trade. And then again, it's rook and 3 versus rook and 2.
He knows it.
A very easy draw.
He's very clear
on it.
And he's actually just going after the trade more directly. Vishy trying to avoid it, but
cannot.
Garry is
He's forcing
screwing in that rook,
King's
saying,
on the run.
let's see you hide.
Yes, go ahead.
Which one? Alrighty.
That was funny. Gary was like hesitant which the king's rook or the queen's rook should be attacking, and Vishy is acquiesced
The trades
to the trade of the rook.
Down to 1 rook apiece.
And now the only thing you can do is bring the pawn to c5 and force yet another pawn trade.
Well, he's going to keep on working at it, but it's Garry Kasparov we're talking about. He's not going to let this one go down. And as you said, the pawn is advancing, and he can even just keep his eye on this pawn.
Yeah, he can just wait and play rook to b4 at this moment.
Even rook c1 is possible. No?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, many moves draw at this point.
And while the result's not in, now's when you begin the discussions about the fact that Vishy's just running out of games to start to build that comeback.
That's
right?
right.
Again, not mathematically out with 3 points dedicated per win. This ends in a draw. He's still 5 points behind with only 3 games to go at that point. You're running out of room.
I'll tell you, though, I feel Vishy will not feel that badly about this game.
He had good control. He played a good game.
He may not feel like, there was not much there. Garry defended well. We have a logical draw. I had some chances. He doesn't know that he had more chances or not. I think he's going to walk out of this feeling like, I gave it a shot, and it didn't work out. And
I had some,
on to the next game.
Yeah, and I kept pressure on my opponent the whole game. You feel good about that.
Now they're approaching move 60 while repeating as well, so they're almost there. They can actually offer a draw at this point. Move 60 has arrived.
There it is.
And they're smiling.
Yeah. Do you want to play?
You hear them talking about it, and it looks like
I guess
draw
they
was offered and
draw.
accepted as the kings get repositioned to the middle of the board.
Yeah. Let's hear what they might be discussing. Speaking of all that kind of voice, they're whispering.
So then I don't know, like e4. It's like his move, but he just said it was this position was so bad. So it's like, I don't know, you play so great game. F6 is
Gary's criticizing his move F7, F6. I actually thought it was a decent move at the time he played it, but his follow-up, Maurice, I really have the feeling that Vishy let something escape him.
I'm checking right now, and it seems as though he didn't miss anything back here as we come to the big board.
Yeah.
This was the position that we were concerned about. When Garry found some star defensive moves, clearly. Star defensive moves, and he found this one. And this is the position where we wanted to take on f7. But actually, after takes and takes, in this position takes, you keep going with this capture.
Which is what we looked at mostly, yep.
There is this little thorny move, weirdly enough, attacking the base.
I didn't see that.
In this position. Now, how do you continue here? If you play the move d3, there is this move, e4, that wakes you up. And that one is a little bit nasty.
That's a surprise move.
Yes, opening up on this side right here. You obviously see the pin on the diagonal, so you can't just capture because you lose your knight to that bishop. And suddenly it's black with the initiative in this position. So it seems as though Vishy did not miss an opportunity, played correct chess, and sometimes correct chess is just a draw. So
wow,
that's all it was, an interesting game.
Visually, it looked like there was something there, James. But in the end, good defense.
Well, if nothing else, then maybe a confidence builder, like you say. I played good chess. Right. There just wasn't anything there to be found.
Right.
So, hey, let's go ahead and reset. I go to the black side of the board. Let's take a look at the score lines, because as we mentioned, it is still well within striking distance here for Vishy Anand coming through the first game of the day. 1.5 points apiece awarded for that draw, brings us to 10-5 overall. But no bonus money.
No bonus
awarded
money.
because there was no
$3,000.
decisive victory, and $3,000 in play per game.